pleasure to have you at the BSEL building today. Please allow me to go through the protocol list in recognition of everybody who's here with us today. I would like to recognize the presence of the BSEL Board of Directors here present, the CEO of the Botswana Stock Exchange, Re Thapelo Tole, the Bank of Botswana Governor, Mr. Moses Pelaelo, the SIPCO Limited Chairman, Mr. Neil Armstrong, in his absence, the SIPCO Limited CEO, Mr. Morgan Mzwere, BSEL and SIPCO Limited Management, all the important stakeholders here present, members of the brokerage community present, members of the capital markets ecosystem, members of the media. My name is Thapelo Moribame. I'm the head of market development. I'll be leading this very brief session. I am very happy to welcome you to the November opening bell ceremony hosted by the BSE. We host the opening bell ceremony every month to celebrate the market and just to sensitize the public at large about what the BSE is doing. I'm very happy that for this ceremony we have the Bank of Botswana Governor, Mr. Pelaelo, who's going to share with us key issues in terms of what the central bank is doing to develop the capital market or the financial market at large. I'm also happy that today we are commemorating the SIPCO International Limited listing, which happened on the 5th of October. But today we are mainly celebrating with SIPCO and welcoming them officially to the BSEL Limited listing or listed company family. So Bakayetsu, you are welcome. As is the norm, I'm going to invite the Chief Executive Officer of the Botswana Stock Exchange, Re Thapelo Tole, to officially welcome you to this building and share with you key market updates. Re Tole, the podium is yours.
Thank you, the Head of Market Development, Moribane, the Governor of Bank of Botswana, Mr. Moses Pelaelo, my former employer, SIPCO Limited CEO, Mr. Morgan Mzwere, the BSE Board of Directors, Mr. Motwahai and Mr. Ogupa, and BSE Limited Management, SIPCO Limited Management, representatives from various banks, Barclays, Stanbic, representatives from BITC, and representatives especially from Bank ABC, who we have just approved their listing this morning. Bank ABC, I think the letter came to office today. so you'll find it when you get to the office. Welcome back to the market, guys. The market is a good place. Members of the brokerage community, investors, members of the media, let me take this opportunity to welcome you to the opening bell ceremony, which we have been hosting every first week of the month. And today we are happy to be hosting our governor, Mr. Pelaelo, to give us some perspectives in terms of the role of the central bank in development of capital markets. Our intention is to keep capturing certain themes and then sharing with the members of the public concerning the broader development of the capital market, especially at this time where Stock markets around the world are on the negative, even in terms of trading. I think from January to 25th October, we've only traded about 1.2 billion pula, and this gives you about 6.2 million pula per day, which is almost half of what we are used to trading. But the total market cap is still at 413 billion pula, which is still not too bad. The positive developments include the fact that we have had more trading on the bond side. Of the total government bond listings of 8.9 billion pula and corporate bonds of about 5 billion pula. I think this year is the best in terms of bond trading. So in the history of the bond market, which I think it's a great development. We still have 46 bonds. I think we have seen increased listings on the corporate bonds. Number of ETFs remains at 3, and we are welcoming CIDCO today again officially, celebrations, and I'm happy that they are going to celebrate until lunchtime. They've sponsored the celebration until lunchtime so that we just interact with market participants. CIDCO is the first company on a new sector, the agricultural sector, on the BSE, and we are happy to be the primary listing. Botswana, they have done secondary listing in our brothers next door, Zimbabwe Stock Exchange, who we have shared many dual listings together for many years now. And I think it's an important day because ours is to follow the international principles and perspectives in terms of how we run the stock market and the exchange, and we always play by the rules. In spite of the sensitivity of some of the issues, but we keep on doing our best and running on the market. And I think in terms of listings, we have generally done well. For the past 2 years, I think we have had about 7 listings. I think the Bank ABC will be the 8th. You can compare the numbers if you exclude Johannesburg. Listings are hard to go by in Africa, but we are on the ground, and we will still be on the ground for many more listings to come. I don't want to take a lot of time, Governor, and maybe let me take this opportunity to invite you to the stage, and the market will open at 9:55, and of course we have just issued a statement that we have suspended Juppies. So when the market opens today, that suspension will reflect.
Yes, thank you very much. Botswana Stock Exchange Limited board members here present, Chairman of CIDCO International, Mr. Neil Armstrong. I haven't seen him here, but of course your fellow board of directors here present, and the Chief Executive Officer of CIDCO International, Morgan Nzwere, Chief Executive Officer of Botswana Stock Exchange Limited, Reta Pelotseole, and your management team, colleagues from the banking industry, and a special mention of the Chief Executive Officer of Bank ABC, Reverend Nalote. I understand that you've been approved for listing, so good news for the banking sector. Of course, we continue to dominate in the exchange. Captains of industry and the representative here present, media practitioners, distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen, good morning. I understand that the market should open, but I do have a few remarks that I've been asked to do, so I hope the market will open, will continue with the business. But let me say that it is a great pleasure and honor to have been able to accept this invitation from the Chief Executive Officer of Botswana Stock Exchange Limited, Retseole, to make a few remarks on the occasion of today's event, marking the 6th opening bell ceremony. Let me start by acknowledging the important symbolism surrounding the open bell ceremony. This refers to the signal that a stock exchange is open for business. A bell itself is only used in a few instances, notably in New York, where the current practice of ringing the bell at the start and close of each trading day dates back to 1895, initially used in the Chinese gong. But the phrase is used more generically across exchanges, and needless to say, of course, my friends here, financial journalists. The use of a bell is, of course, most appropriate in the environment, typically hectic, of open outcry trading, where the volume of the bell is an effective means of directing proceedings. In other words, the bell was necessary as a form of regulation, albeit, of course, self-regulation. This traditional system of trading has been largely replaced by more efficient technologies, first by telephonic and then electronic trading systems. The New York Stock Exchange still conducts a small proportion of trades, although typically high value, through its floor traders. In Europe, the famous Ring London Metal Exchange remains a bastion of this tradition, although it too has recently been experimenting with the use of modern systems. Director of Ceremonies, the rapid advances in technology, more so in financial services, appears inexorable. Indeed, this has long been the case. Today, the power of the internet, supercomputers, social media, and big data, as well as the potential opportunities offered by new technologies, such as blockchain, dominating financial news and the public discourse. But innovation and disruptive technologies have been a recurring feature of progress and development for centuries. For financial services in particular, it is progress in communications technology, including, of course, the collation, storage, and transfer of information that has often been the key. There are many examples in this regard. Some of you who are students of history, you know the origins of the iconic City of London institutions such as Lloyd's and the London Metal Exchange, coffee houses, where like-minded patrons gathered to share news. We also have the word cable, the colloquial term used by currency traders for the United States dollar sterling exchange rate. This relates to a 19th century undersea communication cable used to transmit key financial information across the Atlantic Ocean. And of course, we have the American Express, the financial services multinational, which began as an express mail business. Distinguished ladies and gentlemen, recognizing this historical context, it should be little surprise that financial and communications regulators must in many cases operate in tandem while adopting smart and cost-effective ways to deal with risks. Today, given the current dizzying pace of ICT development, it is more crucial than ever before that central banks and financial sector regulators are alive to these trends. This adds a further dimension to the challenge in both developing and developed countries of finding the right balance, between being, on the one hand, a prudential regulator, and on the other hand, a facilitator for market development. The latter goal, which is of course interest to CEO of the BSEAL, is something to which the Bank of Botswana is unreservedly committed. As I have observed elsewhere, informed research has repeatedly indicated a causal connection between financial sector development, economic growth, and poverty reduction. However, in many sub-Saharan African countries, Botswana included, financial systems remain mostly small, fragmented, and undiversified, providing only limited services to an exclusive section of the population at a relatively high cost. Equally, while Botswana's financial sector is comparable in size to other countries in the region, it remains relatively smaller and less developed compared to that of its middle-income peers. Notwithstanding these observations, during the past 10 years, Botswana financial sector has expanded rapidly, both in size and the range of services covered, including the Botswana Stock Exchange itself. In this period, cumulative growth of the financial sector in real terms has been almost exactly 100% compared to 52% for the economy as a whole. A major driving force in this development has been the rapid growth of the domestic pension fund industry. Indeed, the role played by the financial sector in supporting inclusive and sustainable economic growth was the central theme of the 2017 Bank of Botswana Annual Report. Distinguished ladies and gentlemen, in broad terms, how should we go about addressing some of these challenges that I've just alluded? And regulated market is good for development. It gives both the investors, the consumers, confidence that their interests are protected in an industry where information asymmetries remain a chronic problem. The news that we have just received clearly speaks to this point. But at the same time, regulation can help confer legitimacy on regulated service providers. And I don't have enough time to converse more on this one, but there will be another time. But let me say that as a central bank governor, I should also extend this point further. The sustainable development of financial market is supported by macroeconomic and financial stability. Botswana has been lauded for its strong macroeconomic environment, a position which was recently reaffirmed by the 2018 Global Competitiveness Index. The macroeconomic environment was the best performing pillar for Botswana, with the country ranked first globally, supported by a public debt to GDP ratio of 15.6% and inflation of just about 3%. This is significant. To further support financial markets development, the Bank of Botswana has recently initiated important changes in the communication of monetary policy, including the recent launch of the inaugural monetary policy report at the September 9 National Business Conference in Francistown. I must also inform you that on Monday this week, the bank published the second MPR following the Monetary Policy Committee meeting of October 22nd. But important as these developments are, neither observation addressed the key issue. That is, how can central banks deal with the problem that at some point, development in financial services that are otherwise legitimate and desirable may be held back, discouraged, or even halted by over-regulation or outdated regulation? And here I should highlight two distinct risks that must be addressed. The first one is the nexus between prudence and innovation may prove to be a challenge, and too often financial sector regulators favor the status quo, which in turn almost inevitably works to frustrate radical but beneficial innovation. Moreover, this risk may be amplified by a lack of appreciation for trends in modern technologies. The second, there is also the danger that regulators overcompensate against this risk by adopting too lax an approach and welcoming all kinds of startup entities so as not to stifle innovation. This may be aggravated in cases where more than one regulator has an interest, a situation which calls for greater collaboration, proper coordination, and effective communication. I call them three C's. And these are very critical to ensure that we don't step on each other's toes. Navigating this risk remains work in progress, with central banks across the world adopting a wide variety of approaches. From my perspective, key elements of a robust approach by central banks should include the following 6 elements, and I'll run down very quickly through each one of them. First, a clear leadership, guidance, and consultation on the desirable direction for the development of the financial sector, including reforms to the regulatory environment. For this reason, the Bank of Botswana strongly advocates the updating of the financial sector development strategy, which is now 2 years past its end date of 2016. In terms of consultations, we have the Banking Committee, Botswana Financial Markets Committee, and the recently established Financial Stability Councils, which provide important channels for consultation, collaboration, and communication. The second point, leadership through advocacy and by example. In this regard, the bank is keenly aware of that key legislation, financial legislation that is out of date, or some of it is missing. Regulations to support the growth of the electronic payments have been finalized, while both the Bank of Botswana Act and the Banking Act are in the process of being revised. The bank is also providing strong support for key developmental initiatives, including the development of the government bond market within the established parameters of fiscal discipline, both through more active primary issuance and supporting the secondary market through the establishment of a central securities depository. That's a very important infrastructure that we require to move forward. The third, as I've already indicated, central banks should invest time and resources to have necessary awareness in developments in ICT. Here, the subject of distributed ledger technologies, the so-called blockchain or DLTs, fintechs, and crypto assets comes to mind. And fourth, where practicable, there should be some scope for easing the burden of regulations to allow innovations to be tested. Here, a particularly promising approach is the use of the so-called regulatory sandboxes and other proof of concept frameworks adopted by many jurisdictions, including Singapore, Indonesia, Canada, and nearer here home in South Africa, where the South African Reserve Bank, working alongside with commercial banks and other players, recently successfully led the COCA project, that's what they call it, to test the viability of DLT for processing wholesale interbank payments. Such sandboxes allow smaller scale experiments under live conditions while being exempt from some legal requirements to keep down startup costs and remove constraints on innovation. The fifth, in scrutinizing innovation in financial services, there is a simple 5-fold test which should be applied. The first issue is it a solution to a real economic problem in a cost-effective way? Does it offer a better service? Is it faster? Does it democratize access, that is, improve financial inclusion? And are there serious negative side effects, including negative externality problems to other sectors? Many recent developments, notably the use of mobile payment systems, would pass this test with flying colors. In contrast, despite the headlines and the hype that they generate, the so-called cryptocurrencies, such as Bitcoin and Ethereum, at least in their present state of development, will fail on all counts. For example, these crypto assets cannot serve as a reliable unit of account, trusted store of value, or universally accepted means of payment. Certainly, my grandmother will not be able to use them. By the way, let's remember that today, November 1, is the 10th anniversary of Bitcoin, and it's still surviving. Some of his siblings have gone, but at least Bitcoin is there. So in conclusion, Paul Volcker, the former chairman of the United States Federal Reserve, once famously said that the ATM was the only really useful financial innovation in banking in this century. This was undoubtedly going too far. As I have already made clear, many fintech innovations hold tremendous promise for improved security and speed of transactions, and importantly, financial inclusion. but it makes the point that central bankers have conservatism and with skepticism ingrained in our DNA. This is how it should be. Not least, together with our core regulators, Non-Bank Financial Institution Regulatory Authority, and BIFRA, the Financial Intelligence Agency, and BOCRA, Botswana Communications Regulatory Authority, we act and serve in public interest. Collectively, and in our respective statutory roles, are responsible for alleviating system-wide risks that are not always readily appreciated by individual operators. As a case in point, measures to combat money laundering and other forms of financial crimes are undoubtedly inconvenient at the individual level. But this would be nothing compared to the inconveniences that would be experienced if international sanctions were imposed against Botswana for falling short of the required minimum standards of FATF on anti-money laundering and the combating of the financing of terrorism. That said, let me once again say central bankers must always do their part to avoid the risk of what might be termed reckless conservatism and embrace opportunities that not only meet customer needs, but also in many instances reduce systemic risks. Chairman of Botswana Stock Exchange, directors of ceremonies, and distinguished ladies and gentlemen, I thank you for your kind attention.
Thank you, Governor, for those wonderful remarks, and certainly we thank you for your commitment in developing the financial sector in Botswana, and together we shall take Botswana forward. The Governor did echo the fact that there's a meaning attached to ringing the bell during such occasions. So we're going to proceed with the bell ringing, because as you can see, the screen has changed behind me, so that is to signal that the market is officially open. So I'm going to invite the Governor, Mr. Pelelo, joined by the SIDCO International Limited CEO, because the chairman is not here, and Mr. Thapelo Tlhole, the CEO of Botswana Stock Exchange, to position themselves to ring the bell. So I'm going to count to 3, and then you'll ring the bell as hard as you can. 1, 2, 3. Thank you so much, Governor, Mr. Nzore and Mr. Tlhole. At this point, I'm going to invite the CEO of SIDCO to come forward, that is Mr. Morgan Nzore, to share with you what the listing of SIDCO means to the company. Mr. Nzore.
The Master of Ceremony, Ma Moribame, the Governor of the Central Bank, Ray Palaelo, the CEO of the Stock Exchange, Ray Tseole, all protocols observed. As SIDCO, we're really delighted to have reached this position today. In the crowd, I see quite a number of people that we did meet when we were doing our roadshow, when we were telling the people about the SIDCO story and what we're trying to achieve in this listing. The Governor mentioned that we were one of the first companies to be registered under the International Financial Services Center when SIDCO International started in 2000 in Botswana. But perhaps to just give you a bit of history of where SIDCO started and how we've got to where we are today. SIDCO as a group was started in 1940 by a group of commercial farmers who wanted improved seed varieties for their farms. Since 1940, it has existed in various forms, and in 1996, it got listed on the Zimbabwe Stock Exchange, and like I said, in 2000, registered in Botswana through the International Financial Services Center, and today here we are, listing our international operations. Why did we start SIDCO International? SIDCO International started in 2000, arose from the fact that we were seeing demand for improved seed varieties across all of Africa. The major companies were mainly in South Africa and Zimbabwe. North of the Limpopo, there were no companies that were providing improved seed varieties. So we decided to start this international arm to make sure that all the markets in Africa were serviced with good quality seed. And Botswana made sense because of the prevailing economic environment, because of the conducive investment conditions. We saw Botswana fit to be the home of SEEDCO International. In terms of our business model, what is it that we do? So we've basically got research stations that are dotted in various countries in Africa. We've got 9 research stations. And these research stations, what they do is they basically come up with new seed varieties. New seed varieties in terms of yield, in terms of disease resistance, in terms of drought tolerance, and things like that. So they are basically aimed at improving what the farmer ends up getting as a yield. When these research stations, they've come up with new seed varieties, what we then do is we give them to growers who are big commercial farmers who multiply the seeds for us. They then deliver the seeds to our factories in various countries in Africa. We process the seeds, we grade them, we treat them, we pack them, and then we send them to the market. Ladies and gentlemen, if you are driving across Africa, if you see a mealy plant that's growing somewhere, chances are that seed has come from SEEDCO. So that seed has been developed from the SEEDCO research stations. This is essentially what we do, research, coming up with improved seed varieties and giving them to the farmers. I think we are all aware that Africa is the continent with the most arable land space. In terms of feeding the world, in terms of feeding the global economy, we are poised to be taking center stage, and feeding the global economy always starts with having the right seed so that you can produce enough food to feed the world. I suspect every one of you will have eaten something today other than meat. And if you've eaten something other than meat, it most likely required some seed to be planted. And this is our business, providing improved seeds so that we can be able to service the growing market. In terms of the major products that we deal in, so we deal in maize, we deal in wheat, we deal in barley, we deal in soybeans, we deal in sorghum, we deal in vegetables, and we're also going into products like rice, like canola, because we would like to cover the whole food value chain. Like I said, our major markets are in countries like Botswana, South Africa, Zimbabwe, Zambia, Malawi, Kenya, Tanzania, Rwanda, Uganda, Nigeria, Ghana. We're now operating in all these markets, and the intention, again, being to feed the growing population, not only of Africa, but of the world as a whole. As an overall strategy, what are we doing as SEEDCO? So we know that everyone needs to eat. We know that the global population is increasing. At the moment, we're in 15 African countries, but in Africa, there are 54 or 56 countries. And so what we are saying to ourselves as SEEDCO is there are still 40-odd countries where we are not operating, and those people need to be fed. Those people need to be provided with quality seed, and we see it as our duty to make sure that we've got our operations in those countries providing seeds for whatever the people there eat. One of the most exciting pieces of our business that we've started is venturing into the vegetable space. We know that people might not eat maize today or sorghum or whatever, but I suspect everyone will eat one form of vegetable or another every day. So this is an interesting arm of our business that we've gone into, and we're expecting tremendous growth in the vegetable space, but also through opening up in various other countries that we already are not. In terms of growth, we are seeing tremendous growth in East Africa. We're seeing tremendous growth in West Africa. If we look at what we are doing as a business, at the moment we are selling between 50 and 60,000 metric tons of seed across Africa. But when you look at a market like Nigeria, which we've just entered, they potentially require about 120,000 metric tons of seed. So they potentially require more than what the group is selling in all the markets that we currently are in. So we see a huge opportunity, and we are quite excited about these growth opportunities, and we believe we are poised for success. What was the motivation for the listing? So obviously, it's a big job that has to be done. The job that has to be done in terms of ensuring food security for Africa, in terms of ensuring food security for the world, we will all never finish it. We will all die and still leave that job needing to be done. We need to make sure that we strengthen our balance sheet in terms of entering all these new markets, but we are also seeing other international players coming into these markets, and we need to defend our markets. Hence, the need to raise more funds, deploy more capabilities in the target markets. For Botswana and the Botswana Stock Exchange, we think this is a very important listing. As was alluded to, it's the first counter in the agricultural space. But more importantly for us, it's not just the agricultural space, but what we are doing is giving the investment community an opportunity to invest into a number of countries in Africa through holding one share. Through holding the CITCO International share, you are now investing in Zambia, you're investing in Botswana, you're investing in Tanzania, you're investing in Nigeria, you're investing in Ghana. So it's a share that allows you to diversify your risk by investing in a number of countries through one security. We think this is a very important addition to the Botswana Stock Exchange, and we are very hopeful and confident that people will support this share. With those few remarks, I would like to thank you very much, Master of Ceremonies. Thank you.
I don't know if it would be nice if you had glasses as well, maybe probably.
It doesn't take
to a happy CITCO and a long future on the Botswana Stock Exchange.
Thank you all. We're certainly excited to be part of the Botswana Stock Exchange, and for your participation. We would like to thank the governor for coming, and we also would like to thank the CEO of the Botswana Stock Exchange and members of the investment community present, and everybody who really took their time to come. I know most of you would have been participating in the trading, but I'm sure it's worthwhile to understand CITCO, the new member on the Botswana Stock Exchange, and certainly, like what Morgan said, it's an important share, it's an opportunity for one to own or invest in Africa, and we certainly are excited to be delivering that value that you should be expecting from us as CITCO. And with those few words, I would like to thank everyone for participating in this opening session. Thank you all very much. I don't want to spend most of your time. I know you've already spent a lot of time already. Thank you.